You're listening to The Magnificence of the Three with Jason and Timeout, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to The Magnificence of the Three. My name is Jason Ford. I'm here with my brother from another mother, Timeout A Taumua. This is where we level up to find out who we are, remember why we're here, and how to do it better. So we're going to start out today with a continuation of Timeout's story. We just want to remind the audience we are seekers. We're not pushing a truth or an agenda here. We're just keeping an open mind, and we figured with over 100 years of life experience, we may as well share some of our experiences with the audience to give them some hope and some faith in life. So Timeout, I know you like to start us out with a short prayer, my man, so let's go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Good morning. Let's say a short prayer, bless our show with. Father in heaven, thank you for this beautiful morning. Thank you for adding another day to our lives. Thank you for the presence of our spirit, of your spirit in our lives each and every day. Thank you for taking care of our families. Thank you for taking care of our friends. We ask for your spirit to be with us today as we continue to bring the word out to the community. Thank you again for your presence in our life. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. So Timeout, I'm going to bring it up because I know you won't, being the humble man that you are, but little congratulations in the order. You got a Person of the Year award for book and category on the Magnificence of the Three. So congratulations, my man.
Thank you.
There's a fiesta in the making at the party at the Moon Tower, Folk Hags. You don't even know what I'm talking about. Did you see Dazed and Confused when you were in prison?
Oh, yeah, but one time.
You should watch it twice. Be a lot cooler.
I love that movie, man. I love that guy.
So we're going to cover a little bit about what you went through with your challenges coming over from the States to recap last week's episode. So you come over from Samoa. You're already having some issues with substance, with alcohol especially, and things kind of spiral in your early 20s. You end up incarcerated here in the States, and you end up doing a total of 27 years in the California penal system. And you end up getting out knowing that you wanted to write a book. You wanted to write a book on God, but you didn't really know how to go about that. And it seemed to kind of flow through you because being somewhat uneducated, coming over from the islands, I mean, you were educated, but it wasn't like you had a background in scripture or the Bible or religions in general, but you did read a lot in prison. And so you end up coming out and writing this book that took you 10 years. And we're going to talk more about the rest of your stay in prison, how you kind of overcame some of those challenges, especially, I know you did a lot of time in solitary. You did a lot of time in level 4, which is maximum security. And it's an amazing story that you even came out of that. First of all, keeping your mind, and then to come out and redeem yourself by writing this book, which I think is awesome, man. And you definitely deserve the accolades. So let's go back real quick. So you're in prison, and you had mentioned that one of the hardest things, especially when you're in that environment, kind of with your background, is being able to stay disciplinary free. So talk a little bit about that 12-year stint where you had to do 12 years without any sort of disciplinary action in order to even dream about getting out, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It was a struggle, but the changes that as I explained in our last show about the lawsuit that I filed on behalf of my child, that became the catalyst that changed everything. I had a new program. I actually had a cold. It became a cold but the days before that, I was going through a day just to pass a day in prison. So you're going through the motions, but living, there was no living there. You know, living is when you actually start making plans for the future, and I didn't have any. The only thing because the state had told us none of us was coming home. We're gonna live and die in there. That's our sentence. So everybody lived according to that program the state has set for us. So there was a lot of violence at that time. So a low spirit in the prison system. So, but then I began this lawsuit. I began filing this lawsuit. I was thinking that somebody has to stand up for these kids. These kids that the reason why they became children of life of prisoners was because the state created this program that made it enable us to follow these kids. So when they took it, I took it as a personal goal. As a parent, you automatically have to stand up for your kid. That's automatic, and that's exactly what the plan that that I began, and the changes came after that automatically, because then I started see, whenever you get into trouble, they send you to security housing units, and when you do, you lose your property. They send your property home, and that's the risk I didn't want to take when I started working in this case, because all my legal work, all my legal papers in my property, and there's a risk that I will end up losing all this stuff. So that's one of the things I was thinking of when I see that there's a problem and I need to confront that problem. It may end up in violence. I consider that this is one of the first things I consider is I'm going to lose my property, have to redo the stuff all over again. I'm in the middle of a lawsuit now. So, but that began the process of, so now I'm living. That's how I was thinking at the time. Now I'm living. I didn't really knew what I was doing then, but later on, when I got out, started evaluating my past. Then I see where the changes began was this.
Was the fact that you had to file a lawsuit and had some sort of a purpose?
Yes, that's exactly what that was. You know, it was a purpose. It was I started evaluating, considering like I still got in trouble after, but I started evaluating the differences between how serious this incident, how serious my reaction is going to be here, or is it can I live without confronting the problem? And most of the time, that's what I did. I lived without confronting the problem, and it worked out, because then that's how I slowly became disciplinary free. And so in 2002, I went to my first parole board.
2002, you said?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I went to my first parole board, and I just had a confrontation with a staff, like a couple months earlier, and when I went in there, and the parole board goes, you had to be, everybody you came in with are in level 3 and level 3s, and say he had to be retarded, that kind of like the words they told you. You got to be stupid or retarded, man. You're still here for some reason. He just had a 115, and you expect us to release you. So I took that as I took that to heart, and it became my challenge. Just like it's a different kind of challenge. And then what makes it even better was that because now I was doing legal work, I came across that case we discussed it last time, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, we're going home. These guys don't realize it yet, but we're going home. There's no way they can go around this case, the decision by the state Supreme Court.
What was it about the case that made you that convinced you that you would be going home after all that time?
Yeah, because the law was very the laws already from the federal laws to the state laws, they were very strict. You're supposed to do certain things, and if you satisfy all those criteria, then the parole board is supposed to release you. That's all there is to it, But then the parole board interpret the law their own way, and that's how the system got clogged up. Like people can't, it got overcrowded, and where the federal eventually intervened. Anyways, but that was the reason that state Supreme Court decision was changed the system was that. Anyways, that was so after that parole board, I'm looking at myself, and one of the things also that I started looking at, I was there after the parole board, I was thinking, I go there every day because the issue of remorse came up. I go there, everybody, all life of prisoners go there and say these things like, oh, we're sorry about what we've done. It will never happen again. But in practical applications, how can you show that you truly have remorse? That's the question I had after that. For some reason, it popped in my mind after that hearing, and so that was one of the questions. That's a question that actually ended up getting me released.
So what was the answer for you on as far as how you could show remorse, not just say it, make it a transactional parole hearing?
So I went through, after that parole hearing, I think 2006. And they asked me, when I went there, they were so shocked looking at my file. They say, you have no disciplinary through at least 4 years. What happened? I'm like, I don't know. And then after the parole hearing, I start thinking in my mind, say, I think once, if I understand the answer to this question, I think that answer will release me. And then I finally figure it out, But the answer is, if you come in here with this with your violent convictions, and you end up with disciplinary problems in prison, you're not remorseful for what you've done. And the reason why, because you're not following the law. That was the answer that was the answer I came up with.
That was probably some good self-awareness, because if you go in and you're like, yeah, I'm remorseful for what I did, right? Yet you still do not have the self-discipline to not be in trouble over and over again as a repeat offender inside the system, which has got to be difficult, because you've got to be tested by inmates. What about staff? Did staff try to test you because they knew that you were on a good track?
Yeah, they do. They do. You know, I don't want to badmouth them, but you know, they're human beings. You know, it's just that simple. You know,
human beings like to watch other people fail. Unfortunately, yeah.
That system was set up that way too. You know, yeah. But that was the answer that I think it brought me home, because from that 4 years, every time I go, I think I went 1, 2, 3 more times after that. Whenever I went, they asked me, why you haven't got a disciplinary since we saw you last? What happened? What changes? And I say, oh, I'm not sure yet. But I was thinking that if I do 10 years down the line with disciplinary free, I think that the answer would take me home.
So let me ask you this: when you went into those parole hearings, how often was it? Once a year?
No, it's you get denied 4 years, 3 years, a year.
Okay, so, and you're, like you said earlier, in one of the last episodes, is you're in there to sell basically your life story as to why you should get out.
Right.
So did you get to a point where you just quit saying, I'm sorry for what I did, and just continued to act the way you were acting, which was disciplinary free?
That's exactly what I followed through.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. Was it became see, in there, I know you guys watch the movies, and it's actually, some of that stuff is true to life. You know, people will always challenge you. This is their world. The world of inmates is, you know, this is how you measure your manhood. You measure with violence by confronting other people. You know, half of the people in there around you, or more than half, are gang members. This is their world. You know, violence is their thing. So you're always confronted with these people. Man, these people, there are times when you get confronted with them. But then I start seeing, you know, these are, you know, some of the people that I had problems with. You know, for some reason, one day, this is an example. You know, somebody owed me money, and then he went to the security housing unit, and he sent me a note and said, "Hey, my cellie got stuff for you, to pay my bill for my." So I went to his cellie. He says, "Yeah, he didn't need me nothing." I said, "Man, you know." So I knew he was trying to play me. And the next day, 2 days later, he's running across the yard. He already got a knife on his back. I'm like, I'm pointing. I said, "Man, that dude there, yo."
He's got you scoped out already on the yard?
No, he was running across. Somebody already stabbed him.
Somebody already stabbed
him. Poked him. He got a knife on his back. I was laughing, and then I started looking back in the pattern of my life in the past. I'm looking at it, and then I saw this pattern, like a lot of people that I got into confrontation with, you know, over small stuff, end up this way. You know, they always find, you know, inmates assault them, or you end up some kind of form of punishment or something. You know, it doesn't. But that's an example of kind of, I look back in my life and I'm like, man, you know, I didn't see, but God had walked with me. I didn't even see the preparation. But this is one of the things that he was, that he was working with me behind, helping me along the way. But this is just the remorse and the thing, you know, it became a challenge, because now I've done everything else in the system, you know, I've done all that. But then I always remember what my father used to tell me when I was young. You know, I would go up the hill, walking up the hills, and go to plantation, and I'd be like, man, you know, as a kid, man, I was be like, man, it's too far, man. And my pops always used to tell me, you know, it's easy to conquer a mountain than conquering your sinful self. you know, my pops, he was funny, you know, but he would say stuff like that to me. You know, it's easy to
run that by me again. What did he say?
It's easy to conquer a mountain than conquering your sinful self. Like, you know,
so just keep moving.
Yeah, keep moving. You know.
You know, it's funny you bring that up, and I was reading a book that I started last night, and I thought it was interesting because it goes back to kind of remorse and guilt and shame. And it was talking about in the book how if you take accountability and you apologize for your actions, all you can really do at that point is start walking the walk. And apologizing over and over isn't going to do you any good because you're assumed to be guilty at that point. When if you let it go and you quit trying to fight fire with fire, manipulators on the other side will try to continue to make you feel guilty and shameful for past action, even though they have exemplified some of the same behaviors, maybe not the same exact behaviors, but they've been guilty and shameful of something in the past, but they can't let it go on you, right? You cannot let that bring you down. You've got to keep moving forward.
Right, right. Yeah, your brain is designed, you know, I finally understood it fully when I was writing the book. Your brain was designed exactly the same way. It's supposed to evolve this way. You're supposed to your brain is able. There's the ability. The part of the design of your brain is to know how to change your behavior. You know, this is part of how I can't fully explain it here, but your brain, all our brains are designed. The brain forest or the garden was designed to root out to prune itself of unwanted connections. If you're remorseful and you're fully remorseful, it will show. It will show because your behavior is going to change.
Well, I think that's the magic of the universe in general and the way it's structured. And I think through God, if you're remorseful for something and it's through your heart,
Right.
He knows. And it's like, okay, you're going to be rewarded for this. You don't have to go around talking over and over again about how sorry you are about things. It's just move on and do the right things. Have a focus on service to others. And I think that's what you did a great job of is coming out of the system is you knew, first of all, I just want to write a book because you always had kind of writing in you. And you said, I want to write a book about God, but you didn't know where to start. Right. And the fact that you went down that route is probably why you are where you are today, is the fact that you had that remorse and you came out saying, you know what? I am sorry for what I did, and I want to do something of redeeming quality to help out other people. And I think that's what you've done. So congratulations.
Yeah, the challenge is for staying free. For me, disciplinary free inside the prison was this is actual prison time was when I went at least 12 years without disciplinary. That's when I served time. That's the actual.
No more playing around.
Yeah,
it was
just,
you've got to be on guard,
disciplinary,
online.
You got to be disciplined. You got to if you're gonna change yourself, you gotta. This is little. There's nothing. You know, I'm looking around the system. I'm like, this is nothing. You know what people are doing outside and paying bills, raising children. Now that's life, and that's what we don't have. So dealing with these little, little minions around me, that's nothing. I've been there. They're not at my level, so I ignore a lot of stuff. But sometimes I find myself crying in the cell because there's that violence just sitting there. I want to burst out, but couldn't do it because now I got a cold. I have a cold, and it's it's a blessing. Like I look back and I see how God has set the path for me. With this case, once I started this case, everything changed in my life.
This is where you learned how to type. You learned how to go in and do the research, and you started reading the law, and so that sense of purpose is what got you through, which makes sense because other than that you could just float and do your time. And floating and doing your time, I can't imagine the hours upon hours that you have just a bad neighborhood of your mind going on. That's just going to manifest more negativity. Did you ever get to a point where you kind of stepped outside of yourself and looked at what was going on around you is almost a game going on that you had to step outside and go, this is what's going on and this is how I have to stay in my lane because I see how I'm being antagonized in these different areas?
Oh, you see, these are, around you is the worst of the worst. They're not there by accident, They're not there by that. These are the worst of the worst. They pose a serious threat to society. They pose a serious threat to each other in there. So every day, what I did when I started this project was I started evaluating, like I was saying earlier, start evaluating which one is serious situation where it's worth getting into trouble for and which one isn't. Slowly I cut it down. I start cutting it down. So those are the things that I start evaluating, ignore. And then eventually I was able to overcome all these hardships, the psychological and the mental hardships that you had to face with these challenges every day. And so that's one of the, once I got this project going, it's one of the things also I look back now and then I start like I'm watching the system. I'm like, I gotta figure out how to improve the system because I'm watching society, they are spending more money locking a person up compared to sending a child to school or to college. At the time in the 90s, it was like 30,000 to lock an inmate up
Per year?
per year.
Yeah.
And less, so I started looking at and trying to come up with solutions on how to fix the problem because my kids are going to school. I like the state to spend money on them than compare and then spending it on us. So I started putting proposals together and send out to people, send out legislators like I was saying the last time, and these are problem solving things. I'm spending time looking for solutions to solve problems, and that contributed. The book here was the same. It came out the same way. They're looking for. We're looking. There's a problem with God. Nobody believes him because nobody can prove that these things are real. The tree of knowledge, tree of life, garden of Eden, ark of the covenant. Those just the four icons that nobody believes they're real. So how can we solve this problem? How can we bring God back to society? You start by looking for these things. If you can find these things, the job is much easier then. And that's exactly what we did. So
Well, I think you did a really good job. I mean, you definitely provide evidence of the science involving the Bible, which is a different perspective than most people take. A lot of people in organized religion will look at it from a literal standpoint purely, but I think you did a good job of just presenting the material as claims, and it's not pushing a particular agenda, but it's breaking down the atom and opposites attract and things like that. And going back real quick to back up, and then I want to kind of get further on into what you did in some of your further research in law is, I'm a firm believer that the outside world is a mere reflection. So what you put out is what you get back. Did you find that when you're incarcerated and you started to quit looking for the problems and just ignore and move on and stay in your own lane, that those problems actually just started to fade away and you didn't encounter those problems much as time went on?
Yeah, I think I had developed self-confidence. I don't know where this came from, but these guys won't come confront you in your face. They'll come behind you and sock you in your mouth. But I began. I had the confidence to not look over my back. Like I wasn't. Slowly. I've been there, done that. I watched death in there and that kind of stuff. So you slowly, this feeling of I think it's more like I started to find out it was more of insecurity, about yourself in there, and that causes you problems. That's why most people overreact to stuff is their insecurity, is the fear.
Well, I love that because that ties into a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about in future episodes. I think what you're saying as far as you got confidence, so you weren't worried about looking over your shoulder. Right. You already been there and done that. And then you notice that the problems don't seem to happen. I think that worry is probably one of the best prayers for the worst outcome. And that's something in this quantum, in this ether field we live in, is when you're worried, insecure about something, that's typically what you're going to bring on. And you found with that confidence that you didn't have to worry as much about anybody coming to confront you.
Right. Yeah, but it's a daily struggle. But once I step my program in play, that's why I think God interfered on my behalf, was this program when I start doing the legal work, that became a code. And then that code replaces my activities of the day, it replaces my worries and all the other stuff, because that's why most people react, violently to stuff, is when they're worried and concerned about their own interests, about your reputation, your pride, all this stuff, I end up demolishing. I had to remove them before I got out of prison, all this stuff, I had to remove it from myself. These are things that will hold you back,
So did you, in a sense, kind of let your ego melt away?
That's
the sense of the self.
That's exactly what I did. The truth to the fact, and that's exactly what I did.
And they talk about that in any sort of recovery, is dissolving that ego. The ego is not your amigo. You hear all these different cliches, but the fact that you could let go and see yourself as a different person and let go maybe of those identifiers of yourself. Because I think a big part of our character defect and why we continue in cycles of bad behavior is that we label ourselves. And once we label ourselves, that's the way we tend to react and behave. Right. And I see it a lot in recovery. We were talking about it earlier, where I think AA and the 12 steps is a great program. One thing I do see in there, and I think that's why there's a significant relapse rate, is that you are identifying yourself as an alcoholic or an addict. And a lot of people do it for the rest of their lives. And then it's like you're in constant maintenance mode. You haven't redefined yourself at any point, and I think that's dangerous.
Right. Yeah. One of my motivators. I forgot the quote is from the big book. About places, things, and people.
People, places, and things.
Yeah.
Resentments.
Yeah. What you call that? I had that planet underneath. I'm on the bottom bunk.
Your amends.
Yeah, I put it underneath. So I wake up every morning. I see this, and now I forgot the quote about places, people, places, and things. I forgot the quote, but
that's all right. So go ahead. So let's talk about the so you end up, where does this go with, you had done a proposal for some sort of university or education within the system, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, one of the problems being there, like I was saying earlier, that when I got in, it wasn't, it took everything, the vocations, the school. There was some kind of formal college, university, education there, and the state took them out and said, none of these guys going home. So we're taking all their programs away from them. And then they planned on expanding the prison system. They did something. The 3 strikers, I don't want to, there's a lot of discussion on that, but the problem, as I saw it, they can't hold these people because everything costs money. They can't hold people in here this long. You have to figure it out, and that's when they start putting these proposals together, presenting their arguments to them that this is not financially, it won't work long term. Yeah, you can't sustain. We're locking people up. You think you can keep them there, and then the prison guards demanding, they're getting paid a lot of money for keeping people in. So the cost of incarceration keep increasing. So I'm saying, my proposal was, you got to pick out the best worthy people and release them, but put them some college education first, prepare them. Cost less to incarcerate any of these people and cost less to keep them out than to bring them back, So you're paying them $30,000 a year to keep them in. So anyways, I put a nice proposal, a couple proposals actually, but this came back earlier this year. I still have a case over here in Santa Ana in the courts. So an appeal on my conviction. So I went there one morning and the judge said good morning. I sat down, said good morning, I sat down, and the first thing he goes, "Hey, I'm very impressed with your last hearing." I was like, it kind of threw me off the loop because I haven't thought of this stuff in a while, over 10 years. And it goes, "Oh, thank you. What about?" And it goes, "Hey, what did they do? Did they do anything with the college program? Did they bring a college program in?" He says, Yes, they actually did. So, congratulations. I like that,
So let's recap this. So you go into a case in Orange County 10 years after you're released.
Right.
You get the same judge.
No, this is a different.
Or this is a judge. She just saw your previous
my parole
hearing and said that she was impressed with the fact that you had developed some sort of a proposal.
Yeah.
And then you find out that they actually implemented something.
Yeah. Oh no, when I was in there, they did start bringing the college program back while I was still inside. But all this stuff I had put in my file are still there today. So this is what the judge looked at. She went through my file and found these proposals I put together in there. So, but that's how, like these little things came out later on, showed up later on. Years later, I've released, but it's there. The record is there. But these are the kind of things that end up when I started this project. I had the tools. I had a typewriter. You know what I mean? A simple tool, and I end up changing as a person inside just with a simple tool. Just a typewriter, make it easier for me to draft out stuff and send it to
probably made time go by a lot faster too when you're sitting in front doing that, and your mind, like you said, is focused on a goal. You see some sort of intent and some hope for the future. So, is there anything else you wanted to add to that before we go to kind of your actual going into a parole hearing, your final one? Was there anything else you wanted to add before that?
Oh, there's a lot more stuff I did, a lot more stuff. But one of the most important things that it was for me was all this stuff I was doing. while I was doing the book, and then I finally understood everything that I went through. Like even this thing, doing a proposal together, I didn't realize that I was preparing, because this is what this book is about. It's a proposal, is of ideas of what these things are for, why they were meant to be there, and why they prove that God is the truth. But one of the most important things that you just mentioned right now, because it passes time, but what happens was, even though my body was in there, my mind was not. My mind was free. That was and that's helped me a lot more process the environment a lot more that end up in my release.
Yeah, I was talking to another who had done some time, and he was telling me, I can go anywhere in my. He works so much now, he hardly ever gets to go on vacation. He goes, that's okay. He goes, I learned to go on vacation anywhere in my mind. I don't need to take 2 weeks off.
No, that's excellent. That's exactly.
And you mentioned that books had done that for you too, because you're like, I can go anywhere by reading a book, somewhere different.
Yeah, somewhere different.
So let's talk a little bit then about going into this final parole hearing, where you had been told, because you were still in contact with your wife with prison, and you had mentioned that you were going to go in the parole hearing. She had told you to say a prayer before going in. Let's talk about that whole scenario and kind of your thought process going in, and kind of what happened as you walked through that door and into that hearing.
Yeah, so I finally got to a level 2, and
which is, for the listeners, level 2 is what?
That's like the lowest level. That's level 1, level 2. This is the lowest level you can go in the prison system, from level 4, 3, 2, and 1.
As far as security and
security, Okay. So I finally got there, and then people would lifers were really beginning to get released, and I was looking at myself and saying, listen, I have a good chance of being released. Now, the challenge for me was, because I didn't even really have any skills, because they took the vocations from us. I have a little bit of skills, but nothing to come out here and make a living off it, So I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do when I get out? And then my dream that I've always had since high school was getting published, popped up, because I've tried writing in prison, and some short stories, and the inmates love it. They say, man, you gotta finish that story up. So I kind of, I kind of understood I have a little bit of skills of somewhere, that even inmates like, inmates don't like anything that's done by anyone that that looks decent to them, But this guy, they love stories. So anyways, that's when my dream start planning in my brain what I was going to do. I'm going to come out and write. But what am I going to write about? And then I remember this feeling when I got to level 3, right? I got level 3, level 4. I was in level 4 for 21 years. And I got level 3. Level 4 is everybody. A lot of us are lifers, a lot of killers, a lot of violent people are there in level 4s. But
you ended up in level 4, though. Tell us real quick. You ended up in level 4 because of incidents within prison itself, correct?
Right.
Essentially, you get to maximum security, and so now you're down at level 3, level 2.
Yeah, these are lower levels where most of the inmates are not lifers. They're not convicted of murders, or they're violent robbers, burglaries, and burglars, a lot of gang members. So when I got there, I'm looking around. This is my first time in level 3, my first time around this class of inmates. And then for some reason, I began afraid. I actually start looking at this kid. I'm not afraid for myself, but I was very afraid for society. I'm looking at this kid. I'm like, man, how does society deal with this kind of generation? And there's millions of them. I'm like, man, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Then the only solution is we have to prove that God is real. These kids have to come to understand and know that God, there was a creator, and this is how he created mankind. This is what we're supposed to do, And so that was the first thought that came to my mind. And then I started thinking about it, and I said, you know what? Well, I know what I'm going to do. Since these kids, the young generations now follow evolution, they prefer evolution over science, over the church, because the church is not, the church we know from the last 20 years have been behind a lot of these wars in the Middle East, and these are kind of things the kids watch. They're not stupid, we treat them as idiots, but kids are watching this stuff, and so they don't live in this stuff anymore. So they more go to science. They think science as facts. So my goal was then to say, if God is real, that means he was a scientist. We look around the environment, just looking at how the trees, how the air we breathe, everything is like organized in an organized order. So there has to be a creator. And he if this God was real, that means he left the record somewhere. The record is there, but it's in science. We have to look in science for that facts. And so my goal then was to find 10 pieces of scientific facts that prove that God is real. That was the initial goal. And that's what I actually started doing the research, the last months before I came out of the kind of facts I'll be looking for when it came out. So then I went to the parole hearing and I had this experience I was sharing with Jason and
so before we talk about the experience, not to interrupt, so let's go back and talk about how you look back now and you see almost 30 years going through all that time. For what? You get to a moment where you get down to a lower level of security and you're like, a light bulb goes off. Here's how I can go out and do something good for the world. Is I see absolutely no God within these younger people coming in. And I'm sure most of them had that I don't give an F attitude, right? So you decide, I'm going to go ahead and try to relate to what I perceive society to be on the outside now, which is more science-based, because they've seen the hypocrisy in organized religion and all the war and violence and everything else, and not to mention the fear instilled among people of guilt and shame, etc. So you decide, I'm going to write a book that is evidence of God via science.
Right.
Okay, so that's awesome. So then you go to this parole hearing. That's where I'll let you take it then.
Yeah, the day before I went to parole hearing, I had my wife. And my wife had told me like a week earlier, say, make sure you recite Psalm 23 before you go to the hearing. And he goes, yeah, okay, So that night before the parole hearing, I called her up and she goes, why don't you recite with me Psalm 23, And I go, I already know. I didn't
You didn't even know Psalm 23.
No, I know what it was, but I didn't memorize it, I didn't memorize it like she wanted me to do, so we got into it and I said, man, I'm not stupid. I know this stuff though. So I went that night and memorized it after the conversation. But we didn't end the conversation very well though. So I went to the hearing. So I was sitting in the cell. And these hearings, you're selling your life. This is your life. You're not selling, you're selling your very life, You're trying to sell these people that you're a better person, this and that. And I was laying there, I had anxieties, I was worried, so I laid down, said my prayer, and then I remembered Psalm 23, so I sat up and recited it twice, and I'm like, oh, and I felt so good after that. I think it was more for my wife than for me, but I felt very, very good after that. I say, oh, I think I'm going home today. So the guard came, unlocked the door, and walked me. It's only like 10 steps to the door of the parole hearing room. So I walked out. He opened the door, and I took my first step inside. As that foot crossed over the door, I had this sensation like I just blanked out. Everything in my body fell off. Like there was nothing, no emotion, no nothing. That's the first thing that came to my mind. It was just emptiness. That's how, for this one step. When I landed my second step, it was gone. It was over. I don't know what this was, but man, it was a peaceful feeling. Like I was in peace. I was in peace at that moment. Just one step, I felt that sensation. Finally found peace. This is what peace is. Peace of mind. That's what they say. This is what I think I experienced that day.
Do you feel like at that moment you had a knowing that you were going to get out that day?
Oh, right when my foot landed, first thing came to my mind, I'm going home. I look over to the parole board. I think we discussed this earlier.
It's okay. It's a good story.
Yeah. I looked over, and there's always two people. There's a commissioner and his deputy. So the commissioner was looking down. He wasn't looking at me, but he was looking down, writing. All I see was this guy with long hair down to his shoulders, black long hair down to his shoulders. And first thing that came to my mind was, man, this might be Jesus sitting there.
Did he have an aura around him?
No,
Was he
because
wearing a robe?
it's unusual to see this guy with long hair. Most of the parole board are white men, old men, crew cut.
Like you said, they look like me, man.
Yeah,
I
they
took
look like
offense
you.
to that.
Bald head, former police officer,
Yeah.
Marines, and all that. So but then this guy was different. Like this guy was, it turned out that he was a Turkey. He was a
Turkish
Turkey
guy?
ethnic
Yeah.
and he had long hair. So he looked up and said hello. Said, "Man, I'm going home today." And then we went through a hearing, and that's one of the questions they asked. Why were you disciplinary free all these years? Why all of a sudden you changed your habit?
What'd you say?
And I say, I finally understood the meaning of remorse.
It's a good answer.
You have to follow the law. This is the only physical way we can show that we have remorse is follow the law. You can't just say sorry and then you do something. You repeat the same behavior over and over again. So there's no remorse in that. So, but the hearing was like an hour, 45 minutes, and I was out. So
Kind of took you home too, based on what you've told me about the Samoan culture, because you had mentioned that the culture is very big on remorse.
oh, it's one of the things that that's one of the mystery about the universe is how did every ethnic group come to believe there's a higher power, and I included this in the book, and what we all have in common is emotions. That's what everybody has in common is emotions. Emotions is now science has come to find out that knowledge is rooted on emotions, depending on the emotions that you use. So with my people, they're very family oriented. So they came up with this idea that I can understand it now, that they developed this culture about forgiveness and remorse. Be remorseful and be forgiven. So if you commit something wrong, like you kill somebody's family member, you're supposed to go there, offer yourself, offer your life. You cover yourself up. You go with your family. Your family sits around you. You cover you're up. Go and this is how your form of expressing your remorse for the family. So you go, you give up your life. Whatever the family decides to do, they cut your head off. That's it. Justice
Accept
served. You accept that.
Yep.
And so most it's never been known for a family to not forgive, but that's the meaning of forgiveness. That's how my family developed that culture of forgiveness and remorse. So when the Christians came over, when Jesus landed over, my people found out, oh, they have this here too. But we developed it thousands of years before, thousands of years my people have lived. This is part of their culture. So this is one of the things that one of the things in Common Lab shows this how emotions work across the globe. Here in Israel, in the Middle East, Jesus showed up and showed this and said, you got to do this. Is God, the Old Testament, emphasized the burnt sacrifices to develop these two emotions. So,
I was thinking about there's different aspects, different ways to look at it, different perspectives. You could almost look at if you're truly remorseful, which I know you probably ran into people in prison that had done things that they were truly, truly remorseful for. Almost like the family could make the decision to actually cut off your head, and that may be mercy on you because
Right.
it is just so painful to live with.
right.
So you end up getting out. How much later was it that you ended up getting released from after that parole hearing?
28 years, 28.
I mean, after the
Oh.
parole hearing, how long did it take before you were actually physically released?
What is it, 90 days? Yeah.
90 days?
Yeah.
Tell the story about since you came in as an alcoholic, there was a stipulation. In order to get out, you had to have a sponsor, which a sponsor through Alcoholics Anonymous is basically your mentor, takes you through the steps,
Right.
et cetera. And then you're supposed to go and be a sponsor and take on sponsees. So you had to find a sponsor before you got out of prison. Tell that story, because if you wouldn't have gotten the sponsor, you would have been waiting around.
Right. So one of the requirements for us, if you come in there and your past include alcohol or drugs, you're supposed to get a sponsor for you to that's one of the requirements for release. That's what they told me. So one day it's hard to find sponsors, there's people, but nobody wants to interact with us. Nobody wants, they say, oh yeah, we want you out, but
Yeah, you're the others.
nobody wants to help us out though. So one day somebody came on and say, hey, here's your address. you guys one of the AA programs in there. We were in there and say this is an address. There's a group of men out there that would like to, got no problem sponsoring Image. So it was like 10, about 10 to 12 of us took the address and we wrote letters, and say, oh, just send it out the letter, see what happens. So I had knowing, that he's gonna come back, but it was like 3 or 4 months down the line, I got his letter, and it was this man. And later on, I met him down later on. But when I got the letter, he said, "Yeah, I'm willing to sponsor you." So I was so shocked. But when
Getting released was contingent upon this.
Upon this
so
release.
you're like, okay, I can get out.
Yeah.
But does anybody want to actually even sponsor me for being an alcoholic
Right.
27 years ago?
Right. So it was one later on said, "This is a signal that I am going home." So out of all these people that sent letters, only one came back, and that was my letter.
Oh, that's
That was-
crazy.
so I met this guy Curtis, buddy Curtis. He passed away last year, but man.
Oh yeah, but there's no God. That's all coincidence.
Yeah. This guy, he came. He literally came like 3 times to visit me in Blythe. So he told me the story. He said, "Yeah, we went to the meeting, and somebody said, hey, there's letters over here from prisoners. If you guys want to sponsor anyone." They was just in a basket, and the letter he picked was my letter. Oh,
That's an awesome story, dude.
Oh man!
So he just happens to pick yours. You're the only one that gets the response,
Yeah.
and then you get out and you write a book over a 10-year period.
This
And
guy here
now you're
was-
just getting awards on it left and right.
This guy here, he was in prison, got shot by the cops. He was in prison in the 70s, and he came out. This guy influenced like alcoholics down here. And since then, in the 70s, he never went back to prison, but he was all over the place. And this was the thing, alcoholic, and
His thing was to go out and serve others.
yeah,
that have been through it. Yeah.
the group is Long Beach Men's Group. So look for that. These are men with this
Is
problem.
he still around?
No, he passed. He
Okay.
passed. I wish you had met him. Oh, this guy was an awesome guy, man. He was one of those guys that that Jesus was talking about. This is the kind of man that Jesus was got. You go out, you give your feed the homeless, visit the poor, visit those in prison, visit the sick people. This is him. This was him.
Yeah.
This thing, this was successful. I consider him a very successful man. In that sense,
Yeah, very few walk that walk where it's like,
Right.
oh, I want to be more like Christ. And then it's like,
Right.
well, are you actually going out and
Right.
doing it?
Exactly. This
Yeah.
guy was. I mean, he picked
That's
all
cool,
the
man.
letters. There was a basket full of letters. He picked mine. When I called him, like, I think I'm going home. I think I'm going home. And this was a sign right here. That was the first one of the first sign that gave me the confidence.
That's phenomenal, dude. So we're coming up on time. Let's talk about then real quick. So you get out and you've decided that you want to write this book on at least 10 pieces of scientific evidence about God. It takes you 10 years to write the book, and you end up getting it published last year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
2023, yes.
And you won numerous awards on it, which is awesome. And it's a great, I think, different perspective on how to break down the Bible if you're not necessarily looking at it as all literal. The development of emotions, the development of the brain, the Old Testament versus New Testament. And for those out there that, like me, I was borderline atheist. I was agnostic at best before I had an experience where I think I was more of a blank canvas, which was a perfect candidate for
Right.
to have an experience similar to yours. We'll talk about it later. I'm not going to get into an experience now, but it was like literally in one moment, my whole perspective shifted 180 degrees. And, I wish I would have had material like this when I was younger because I was very science-based, and I would have been like, oh, now I can have a reason to kind of logically break down the different parts of the Bible and get a perspective that I can relate to. Because what a lot of people do is they just run from God altogether because they see the hypocrisy in some of the organized religion, and it's basically creating the opposite of love, which
Right.
is, the fear and the anger, the resentment. And so this is a great piece as far as breaking down. And you had mentioned you're going to try to break this down into possibly
Right.
2 or maybe even 3. I think it could probably be 3 books. That's going to be up to
Right.
you. And so what are the plans from here then?
Oh, let's the awards, as I was saying earlier, I know they're based on the marriage because it's badly structured. This is I'm in experience. I only paid one editor who was a line editor. I couldn't afford anybody else, so it's badly edited, for sure, and the structure is bad. So the awards are
Can't be
based on
that
the
bad,
merits.
dude. If you got like 7 awards on it.
It's the merits. They can't ignore the merits.
Yeah, the
It
merits of
deserves
the book. Yeah.
The merits of the book. So, but the only reason why this book was made possible was that experience I had in the parole board. That was, I call it
Something
the
was
download.
the download. You and I said exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it
You
was a
asked me
download.
the first day we met.
Yeah.
You go, "What was that?" You saw a picture of the back of my book, and I just write on there briefly that I had a kind of a white light experience that changed everything. You said, "What was that like?" And I told you, I go, "It was a download." And you go, "That's exactly how I explained mine."
Yeah, it was a download.
And that changed your whole perspective. And we both have similar stories on writing our books. Is like when you go back, I've only read my book once. When I go back through it, I'm like, I don't remember writing some of this. And you said the same thing on this material. It just flows through.
Yeah.
You can tap into that infinite intelligence that's out there, and if it's meant to be, that you'll see the synchronicities and the perceived coincidences flow right in front of you. But it's amazing all the time that you had to wait in order for this to happen, and you should be proud of yourself. I know you're a very humble human being, but it's a huge accomplishment, and you did it out of your heart because I know, when we started doing this podcast a few months ago, you're all about, I'm just the messenger, which is great. We're not here to push any agenda. It's just that if we can push a message that helps people, then great, to each their own. It's like going to a buffet. You go and figure out what you'd like to eat, and hopefully it fills you up. But if you don't like the macaroni, go to something else.
Right.
Did you want to wrap up with anything else before we close out?
That was a short of my story. I probably won't be talking about it again, but our brain was designed to adjust for survival purposes. This is what God called it the Garden of Eden. But your brain, the human brain, was designed to evolve, to adjust, prune itself up or old connections. So whatever you've been in the past, it can redo it. Your brain is able to. This is how it was designed. It's just nobody here. Neurologists understand it. But they don't go out here telling people that. I'm not sure why they're not. The average person needs to understand this. But the brain was designed to adjust itself. That's what happened to me. That's my story. That's
Prune out the bad network connections.
Yeah, prune out the old connections and regrow yourself, redo yourself over, and we have that ability to. It's just that's exactly how the brain was designed from the get-go. It was designed after the atom magnificence of the 3, because the atom can also regrow itself. It can change shape,
transform into a new element.
Into a new element, and that's the design of the brain. Everything else was designed after the atom, so we just gotta understand it more.
And hopefully that's what we're going to help the audience with, at least people that are seeking it out, because I didn't write a book on going through alcoholism to glorify it and, hey, look what I went through. It's not unique. But I thought, well, if I was kind of a poster boy for somebody that's going to have what you see on paper as everything with material things, but then yet have such a void inside that I fall into alcoholism, maybe I should write about it and what I learned about. And hopefully that helps. And I think that truly the one thing, when we mentioned that download, the first thing that I wrote down, I started keeping journals, was when you serve others, you serve yourself. And then everything kind of stemmed from there. And that gentleman that helped you out, your sponsor, it's exactly what he did the rest of his life. And look what he did. Now you're sitting here. He could be looking down going, look at this. Right. So why don't you go ahead and lead us out in a quick prayer and we'll wrap up, buddy.
All right. Let me take this time to thank you, my brother. Thank you for, for joining me in this journey. Thank you for your help. That's all we do. We try to do our best to serve the community, improve the community. The world has not been in peace since my whole lifetime. It's been always in a state of war. Always. Today they are murdering the Christians, and the Zionists are murdering babies. For no reason. They don't understand the Bible. They don't understand what's written in there. A lot of stuff is simple. Jesus said to love thy neighbor. Even God, the Old Testament said love thy neighbor for a reason. They ignore this stuff, and but. Hopefully you can find the time to read this book if you can. I'm not even trying to sell the book, but you want to improve the world that you live in, go through this one. Include this in your bookshelf. So thank you for your time. But so today, thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening to our show. Thank you for everything that you've done for the community, whatever you've been doing. Love thy neighbor. Our Father in heaven, thank you for this day. Thank you for your presence of your spirit here with us. Thank you for everything that you've done, blessing for our family and ask for your blessings for this nation. Prepare to elect its leaders. This is your nation. Hopefully they'll come to understand it better. Thank you again for everything that you've done for us. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
You're listening to The Magnificence of the Three with Jason and Timeout, only on LA Talk Radio.